here on the Field of 68 podcast network. I am overjoyed, thrilled, and all the other exciting adjectives that you can come up with about inviting my great friend, Lisa Byington, who is not only a groundbreaker, she is a ceiling breaker as well, but a history maker. But most importantly, as I said, a super good, fantastic friend of mine. Oh my gosh, down through the years with the Big Ten Network. Lisa Byington, oh my gosh, thank you for joining us today.
Christy, if you ask for anything, I'll do it and I'll be here. And I've had a lot of great things happen to me in the last few months, but the one downside is that I haven't been able to work with you as much, and so we got to find ways that we can connect, right? And this is one way.
Absolutely. We had that one game and that was so much fun at Marquette. It was Marquette UConn women's basketball. And that was, oh my gosh, my face hurt for 2 days after that because I was smiling so hard.
No, we had dinner the night before and it's just there, it was like riding a bike sitting right next to you. It was a lot of fun.
Super fun. But the NCAA tournament, we're in the thick of that. We're also in Women's History Month, and it should always be like that. Like every single day, we should be celebrating what women are able to do. But Lisa, in your case, my dear, we have to give some encouragement to our young girls that are in elementary school, middle school, high school. And we're going to take a walk back down memory lane with you to shine a light on what your journey has been like. I mean, we know the last couple of months have been like, oh my goodness, just a whirlwind of fantastic news and great opportunities, but it started from somewhere. Let's go back to when you were an elementary aged young girl, the youngest of 3 daughters in your household. What was that like for you, number one? And when did you first fall in love with what sports represented?
Well, yeah, I give a lot of credit to my parents, and Christy, you being a mom of 3 can appreciate that. In that the one thing that my mom and dad did is they never forced me to do anything. They let me kind of gravitate towards what I really liked, and I was involved in everything from school plays to swimming to gymnastics to your typical sports that every little kid plays, and softball and soccer and basketball and tennis and you name it. And for whatever reason, I gravitated towards sports. And that was one thing that my parents did is they let me choose. They let me choose what I was going to do. And then the other thing that they allowed me to do was not put boundaries on what my dreams could be. And they never said, well, you're a little girl, so these are what little girls do. They just kind of made me believe that if I wanted to do something, I could do it. And there were no gender boundaries growing up in that way. I can remember in elementary school, I really loved playing soccer. And so at recess, I would go out and I would play soccer at recess, and I'd be the only girl playing with all the other little boys. And everyone kind of looked at that from the outside thinking, well, that's really strange. There's one girl playing with all the boys. And who didn't think it was strange at all was the little girl playing with all the boys. It was me.
That's right.
Because my parents never made me think that would be strange or odd. It was just, Lisa, do you want to play soccer at recess? Then go find the people who are playing soccer at recess. And so I think those kind of things laid the foundation where they truly let me believe that I could be whoever I wanted to be.
Oh man, I love that. And I can picture a baby Lisa Byington running around with a ponytail, like kicking that ball with some gusto. Just really a cute picture. And with that, I mean, you move on to middle school and then high school, and you had the dynamic of being a coach's kid. Your dad, Bob, coached you through high school. And as a mom who coached their daughter through high school, I know that there's always a lot of different stories and a lot of different prongs to that. What was that experience like for you from the beginning to the end?
I hated it my freshman and sophomore year. I was on the varsity, to be totally honest, Christy. I mean, I was on the varsity for 4 years, and our high school didn't have a whole lot of basketball success, which is one of the reasons why my dad actually accepted the coaching job, because he thought that, at least he didn't know if he could provide more wins, but at least he knew that he would put in the time to try to provide a great opportunity, not only for me and my sister, but for everyone else who was going through at the time. And so my freshman and sophomore year, we didn't, I was probably one of the better players on the team as a freshman. So, put that in perspective. You're a freshman who's starting and your dad's the head coach. And so for some people that didn't go over so well. So I think he felt, and rightfully so, that he had to be tougher on me, in particular, my freshman and sophomore years. And I understand that now. I didn't really understand it then, but I understood it now. And as junior and senior years came and we actually found more success, we found more wins, we actually made it to the Final Four in states in our division. And it was the first time in school history. And it was a wonderful thing. And like the school had bus loads of the kids. They got the day off and they all went to the game. So it was a really big deal. So here you go from a program that had never had a winning season until my junior year in high school, to then my senior year getting to like the state semifinals for the first time in school history. So it was, you had to work to it. And I think my dad realized my junior and senior year that people had realized that I had earned, I had earned those places on the team, and I had earned being the leader. And it wasn't just because dad was the coach. So it was a process, certainly, but I wouldn't change it for the world, and my dad and my mom are still some of my biggest fans. Whenever I do a game, whether it was a field hockey game many, many years ago to the Milwaukee Bucks, I always get a text message after every game, and it's from mom and dad.
Oh my gosh, nothing like that. Nothing like that. When that buzzer went off your senior season and that journey was over, what did that feel like for you? And when did you have a sit down with your dad and kind of say, this was a really special chapter of our lives?
We didn't have to do it to each other, because it was kind of cool, because the local TV station did it for us. And actually there's a tie there, because that's the first time that I really started thinking about broadcasting. Because as a high school senior, the logical stories, you have this high school, Portage Northern, this high school that's doing great things, and they're making their way in the state tournament. And oh, by the way, they have a dad and a daughter as part of the team. And so one of the local TV stations in Kalamazoo, Michigan, WNBA, was there for my final game. And so they happened to pick that game to do a feature on my dad and I. And so they have this shot of me walking off the court, and I'm emotional, and the first person to greet me was my dad. And so they captured this hug that he gave me. And, I still get teared up when I talk about it. And this was, back in 1993. So you can tell how much that meant. And so it was just a really cool piece that I still have to this day. It's one of my favorite things to go back and watch. And so the TV station helped us do that, and he knows it. I tell him every day. So, but Christy, that kind of opened up the door to, I saw how much it impacted me. And I thought, like TV can be pretty powerful, and TV can be a wonderful thing. So that was the first time that it kind of triggered in my brain that maybe TV might be something for me to do down the line.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. I love that so much. And that next step for you, you went on and you were a two-sport athlete at Northwestern, 2 years of soccer and 4 years of basketball. First of all, how? Because I was only a one-sport athlete in college, and that was very rigorous. How did you handle not only doing those two sports, but also becoming an academic All-American while doing that as well? I mean, mind blown.
I guess I just am glutton for punishment, right? And I'm always looking on how many, not if I can juggle, but how many balls can I juggle in the air? And me to this day, I juggle a lot of different things as well, in a lot of different sports and a lot of different levels. That's just always been who I who I have been at, I sometimes when you're at your busiest, you're at your best. And I don't know, I think I'm one of those people, but I always say this is that the time that I enjoyed the most at Northwestern was actually the time where the sports were crossing over. Like you mentioned, I played 4 years of basketball and 2 years of soccer. So it wasn't my whole time where I was doing both. So I think that helped. I waited till I was an upperclassman to decide to take on a heavier load. But I just really enjoyed it, Christy, because for one thing, basketball was a full scholarship sport. And so we got a lot of things that the non-scholarship sports would get, and so I think it gave me an added appreciation. Basketball, we get sweats and shoes and all that stuff. And for soccer, they give away partial scholarships, and some players on the team don't even have scholarships that are playing in college soccer. And so if they got a t-shirt or, an extra pair of cleats or something, I mean, it was like Christmas Day, and it gave me an added appreciation to not take for granted what I got at the basketball side. It just gave me maybe a bigger picture about the athletic world sometimes. And, some sports and some groups get things that others don't. But ultimately it also gave me a connection with a different group of student athletes. And I love that I have my basketball friends and my soccer friends, and that I could appreciate how hard they worked day in and day out, different sports, but the work ethic was still there, and the hard work was still there, and the passion was still there. And I got to see it from so many different sides.
Yeah. I mean, I know that was hard work, because I know once I graduated, I know that I was like, wow, that was quite something. And to take on 2 sports, I mean, hats off to you on that, because that's a lot. That's a lot. And to be an academic All-American, I mean, come on. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm just a nerd. So that's the academic piece.
You got all that work done. I don't know how you found the time. I mean, the time was not at a premium. I mean, that was tight. I mean, kudos on that, because I know that was a lot of dedication, I will say. But I know once you graduated, like you said, you had a little taste of what you may want to do next, right? With broadcasting, and your senior year in high school, you kind of side-eyed like, wow, that's pretty powerful. WKBK. When I say those initials for a news station,
WBKB.
what is that? What did I say? WBKB?
You got it. WBKB.
Oh, okay.
And here's the funny thing about the acronym, that you got to get the letters right, because when I got there, I realized the locals said it stood for "We Barely Know Broadcasting."
No, WBKB. Wow. So I know it was one of the smaller stations in the country at that time.
Yeah.
So to see you from that point to where you are now, I mean, this shirt that is also yours, I don't know if you can see the Lisa Byington on the bottom there. I had to put it on for you today, Lisa B. But you just read it, and you have to work the grunt job to get the great job. And what was that like to go ahead and take this job at, the acronym you said stands for something that's probably not so positive. I mean, that was a challenge, I'm sure, to step into that space. But when you did have the experience there, I know you've spoken about it in the past, and there have been people who you've worked with who have been in our space when we worked together, and how gracious you were, just saying like, man, that was a big moment to take that step. What was that step like for you?
Well, first it was a big step to work at a really small station that no one had heard of, and no one, you weren't going to get paid a whole lot of money, and you weren't going to, you weren't covering the biggest stages. That's for sure. And so, when I think what I say to people is, a lot of great things have happened to me, in particular in like the last year or the last few months. But it's not like I just rolled out of bed and said, I want to be a NBA announcer, or I want to cover the Olympics, or I want to do the NCAA tournament. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. Right. You got to start somewhere. And I think I thought, as I graduated from college, that, I was ready to work at a network, and I was ready for a national stage, and you're not ready. It's very valuable, as the t-shirt says, to do the grunt job, And then you can appreciate what the glory job is. And so the grunt job in Alpena, Michigan at WBKB was, I had to do a little bit of everything. And I got paid $15,000 a year to do it. And I worked, 12, 13 hours in a day, and I was doing everything. I would take a camera and put it on my shoulder, and I would shoot high school football highlights, and I would run around to 3 to 4 different high school football games on a Friday night. And then I would zoom back to the TV station, and I would come back and I would have to edit my own stuff. And then I would have to write my own scripts, and then I would, make a beeline for the restroom so I could change into on-air clothes and do my hair and makeup and try to be presentable, and then anchor the sportscast. And so the first 12 years of my working life were at the local news level. I started out in Alpena, Michigan, and then I went to Lansing, Michigan. And again, both local stations. Lansing's obviously a little bit bigger than Alpena, Michigan. And I love that part of my journey, Christy, and I wouldn't change it for the world, because I realized what it took to work almost every job, within the local news world. And now that I don't have to do that, I still appreciate the people who are in those positions. And the other thing that made me realize was I was doing the right thing, because I wasn't getting the paycheck that I wanted, and I wasn't always covering the things that I wanted to do.
Right.
Yes, I still enjoyed it, and it was still important to me. I'll tell you a story that when I was in Lansing, Michigan, and it was a Sunday morning. Actually, it was Monday morning at the time. I'd worked Sunday evening, which had turned into Monday morning.
Oh boy.
In a February morning, and I'm walking out to. I had just done like archiving of tapes and stuff like that, back when tapes existed. And I'm walking out, and my car is covered in snow. It's freezing, and it's February. It's 2 a.m. and I'm thinking, is this worth it? And I realized that I had to answer my question at that moment. For whatever reason it was, I realized that who cares is I care. And I realized that if I'm never the first answer to that question, does anybody care? Then that's when you have to do something different. And I was doing the right thing, because, like I said, the money didn't matter, and necessarily what stage I was on didn't matter. I was enjoying what I was doing in front of me.
Oh man, you were always preaching and teaching without even knowing it, but just by saying that, it's what's true to you, right? It's what's true to you and how you care about the choices you make. And that station there, WLNS in Lansing. How long were you there, and when did you decide to move from there in 2007 to go to the Big Ten Network?
I was there for 10 years. I think I was like 2 months short of 10 years exactly. So I went to Lansing, Michigan right after Alpena. So I was in Alpena right about like a year and a half. So that's where kind of your 12 years of local news is, about, a year and a half, 2 years in Alpena, and about the 10 years in Lansing, Michigan. And 2007 is when Big Ten Network began as a new network. And let's remember, back in 2007, this was a novel concept. Like, this was not happening, the whole conference network thing. We didn't have SEC network or Pac-12 network or ACC network or any of that stuff.
Right.
So Big Ten Network really, and the Big Ten Conference led the way in this way. And I remember, working in Lansing, Michigan, because it's a Big Ten city, it's a Big Ten market. And everyone, it was the buzz of the summer. Like, what is this Big Ten Network going to look like? And so it helped to be in Lansing. It helped to be in a Big Ten city, especially in that first year, because, I think just, the network representatives and executives were really just kind of looking for people in Big Ten cities and people who were close and people in the Midwest to try to help them in all different kinds of roles. And so it was kind of a matter of being in the right place at the right time and having the courage to say yes to a lot of different jobs that I didn't have a whole lot of experience, if any experience, and had never done before.
Right. And you said when you were at WBKB that you had many hats. So how did that prepare you to jump into a situation with the Big Ten Network and do football, basketball, softball, volleyball? Am I missing any? That's all the sports, right? I mean,
it seems like a little bit of everything, right?
You're a chameleon, though. You're a chameleon.
I always say everything from like field hockey to football is, I've covered the gamut of sports. It's a good question. I remember, I had never been a sideline reporter before. I had never been a play-by-play before. I had never really been a studio host. I mean, I was a local sports anchor, but everything was on a teleprompter and everything was scripted and everything was 3 minutes in your sportscast. And so even studio hosting, where you don't have a teleprompter, where things are coming in, last minute, where you're working with an analyst or someone else on set, like all that stuff's just a little bit different. So I had never had any experience with any of those roles. And so there's the brief moment where you say yes, because I've always said, especially when you're starting out, say yes to opportunity, because you never know what doors it's going to open. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, when you say yes, after you hang up the phone, there's a little bit of a, like, am I ready for this? Can I do this? How am I going to figure it out? And I think, again, it just goes back to grinding, and you don't give yourself an option to fail. You don't give yourself an option to give up. You figure out what you need to do the job well. And I think just, again, background of parents raising me the right way, and taking the smaller job, and doing a little bit of everything. I appreciated everyone who went into some of those jobs that I said yes to, and realized what it took to work hard and find the right ways to work hard to do the job well enough.
Absolutely. And well enough, I mean, supremely well enough. My elite level chameleon friend who just takes on the world and just comes up gold. When you have been a groundbreaker the way that you have in terms of being a history maker for women in this Women's History Month. I mean, I just have a list here, and forgive me for not having it memorized because there's a litany of things here. I mean, the first female play-by-play for Big Ten football with Turner and CBS Men's March Madness. You were the first play-by-play to do that. And then the one moment in time. I mean, we have that love of that song and that moment together, the one shining moment. But there have been many shining moments for you, extended beyond that. The first female full-time play-by-play for the NBA. I mean, that's your latest, but I mean, there were also other things in there as well with the Olympics and covering Olympic soccer. And then I'm thinking about the little baby Lisa Byington soccer player at the elementary school level, playing with all the boys, and then doing that, but then just being that female that people can look at and say, it's not just me in this world of men. This is what I want to do, and I'm capable of doing it. Almost like it was when you were that little girl running on the soccer field, kicking that ball with some gusto.
Yeah, it's, I'll say this, I appreciate being in a position to open up doors and help other women. I do appreciate that, but I can't look at myself in that way, and I understand why other people do. It kind of goes back to being the little girl, being the only little girl and playing soccer with the boys, because that's just normal to me. Like mom and dad say, go do what you want to do. So if you want to work in the NBA, go work in the NBA, and don't look around that sometimes you're the only woman in the room. Like I never looked around at recess and realized I was the only little girl playing. So I don't look at that with that prism. But when I hear you say stuff like that, and I hear other people talk about it, I am appreciative of it. And I'm appreciative of a lot of different things that, when I was a little girl, when you were a little girl, Christy, you can never turn on the TV and see so many impactful women in the sports world now. And I'm just one of many. And I love saying that. I love saying that the tide is changing. I love it that I can think of a little girl and your daughter even growing up where things are much different. And role models look a lot different now in 2022 than they did when I was growing up. And that means progress. But I will say this, with as many women who have helped me, and you deserve several kudos, Christy, because you're one of the cheerleaders and champions and a trailblazer yourself. So I don't want that to go under the radar, but you know, you are a great example of women supporting women. And I think I think we say sometimes that we're supporting women, and I hope that we do. We need to take action as well to support women. And you're always in the front of the line doing that. And I remember one of my first NBA games this year was in Washington, and you showed up with that t-shirt and your kids, and it still means, you know, the world to me that you would do that. But now we still have to continue to make progress, right? And I always say this is not just a female story. It's not just a little girl story. It's all the men who watch sports. It's all the little boys who watch sports, because gender allies are extremely important to this story. Because if it's just women supporting women, we're not going to make the progress or the jumps that we need to make. We need to have men also supporting women to make that progress and to make that jump, and to normalize things. So we're not just hearing, oh, that's a male voice or that's a female voice. Now we're hearing broadcaster's voice, regardless of gender.
That's a voice. That's a voice, and a very powerful voice that you have, well-respected voice that you have, especially with the Big Ten forming a scholarship in your name, Lisa, to continue, like what you were saying about the next generation of young people, boys and girls, who will benefit from the scholarship that was created in your name. When you found out that the Big Ten was going to create that space for the next generation, what went through your mind?
A shock. You know, first of all, you know, one of our Big Ten Network bosses, Mark Holsey, had called me and he said, hey, I know you're going to be doing your first NBA game tomorrow, but we really just need you on a Zoom for like 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it was literally on the same day that I was doing my first NBA game. And so that's all he told me. And so I'm sitting there on the Zoom call, and you know, on Zooms, there's a black screen, and it just said the Big Ten Conference. I didn't know who was going to be on the other side of it. And so all of a sudden, you know, Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren appears, and his face appeared. And I thought, and then I'm like, you know, racking my brain, did I do something wrong?
Like, wait,
am I in trouble? Did I just get called into the principal's office without knowing that I was called into the principal's office? And he told me, and I just got emotional, you know, because to think again of, you know, you start with my mom, who's such a strong woman, and to think about if I didn't have female role models, maybe I don't have those big dreams. And so to think that now the conference, who I grew up watching and playing in and working for, is turning around and honoring me, just came full circle. So you can tell, Christy, how much it means.
Oh man, but it's well deserved, my friend. And what a legacy in sports, what a legacy in life, on perseverance, on doing the work, the grunt work, and now to be walking in the glory of that grunt work. Lisa, it's amazing. It's hard for me too, because, you know, I love you, and I'm feeling what you're feeling on that. But it has just been amazing to have you as a mentor for me, even though you're younger than me, just by a little, but you're amazing in that way. And kudos to your parents for bringing that out in you and letting you walk with the spirit that you walk in. You've impacted so many people, including myself, with that level of energy that you give everything that you do. I'm collecting myself here too. But for me, I know that wherever we went, we worked a lot together for 7-8 years straight, and we had a ton of games together. And wherever we went, you were always the most gracious to people who would come up, like boys, girls, little, young, old, everybody. And you would sit them down and talk to them. You didn't pack up and out the door right after games. I mean, there's like you said, a level of compassion that not a lot of people have, and the understanding of what everyone else needs in that moment. And just want to thank you for showing that all the time. and you've never changed. Like, it's just something that you will always be like that in my mind. And I think now to see you walking in your purpose as the Bucks play-by-play, the first ever in NBA history. Yes, I'm bringing my kids to see it, and 2 boys and a girl, doesn't matter. Like, I want them to see what hard work and perseverance looks like. And it looks like you. I mean, that's you, Lisa, and you're changing the world. And even if it's Milwaukee, but that's worldwide. I mean, just to have your voice, to have your presence, to have your compassionate spirit, continuing to spread seeds of possibility. I mean, that goes beyond measure. It's beyond measure.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you giving me some time to collect myself. But yeah, I think, I grew up with a household of teachers, and that's again, I just bring it back to that, where you grow up and you learn to ask questions, and you learn to teach people, you learn to help people. And, I don't know any other way. And so, to more accurately answer your question about the scholarship and the fact that, I can pick, 1 female out of all the Big Ten schools and have them, take them through the Big Ten network and have them, see an up close and personal view of what it takes to be a broadcaster, or maybe even production, if that's what they're interested in. So many different roles, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera. I'm just so grateful to be able to give back and to teach and to help mentor. It's one of the most valuable things. You're a mom, so the value of teaching and giving lessons. You're a coach, the value of teaching and giving lessons, and that's how we get better. I appreciate you saying that, because we're all part of a team, and
that's right.
And we all can help each other in some way.
Absolutely. And as we close, I just have 2 final questions for you. First of all, I know I said you had the litany of resume of successful things that you have done already, but what is next for Lisa Byington? And I know you just started with the Bucks, so I'm not asking you to move on, but just what do you want to see for you moving forward?
I think I just want to continue to, you go back to that first job I've had, and just to continue to have that mindset of, are you enjoying what you're doing? And is it still important to you? And I know people ask me this question and they want me to say, well, I want to work this event, or I want to work here. I'm happy where I'm at. And when I was in Lansing, Michigan, that was the other lesson that I had to learn, because I was always looking for what's next. And I was always looking for the next step. And I was looking for, is there a bigger market, or is there a bigger paycheck, or is there this, or there's that. And the second that I realized that I was happy, when I was walking out to my car and still had to clean it off at 2 a.m. And I realized, can you keep doing this? And the answer was yes. And so I asked myself that, what do you appreciate every day? And what are you thankful for every day? And I'm happy where I'm at. And sometimes when you have that attitude, sometimes if there's an opportunity there that's worthy of taking, sometimes that opportunity finds you. And when you stop thinking about what's next and what am I going to do and what's the next step, you're never going to be happy of where you're at. And I'm so eternally grateful and happy for my journey and where I'm at right now.
I love that. And my last question to you, my friend, what do you want for the next generation of young people, especially young women, during this Women's History Month?
I think it's what we've talked about is, first and foremost, think about how we can support each other, and look for ways to do that. And then maybe the most important thing is, you're going to get a lot of no's, and you're going to get a lot of, you can't do this. And, I certainly did and still do sometimes. And so I think a lot of people see maybe, Lisa got this, and this job, and they forget that there was way more no's than have gone with the yeses in the last few months. And so I think it's important to understand that someone else's no doesn't have to be your no. And maybe understand where the no is coming from. Try to understand where the no is coming from. You might not necessarily agree with it, but try to understand it as much as you can. There might be something there that can make you better. But don't become bitter. Be better after you get a no. And then if you keep working, and if your heart's in the right place, if your passions are in the right place, then eventually, you know, it only takes one yes. So eventually some of those no's might turn into that one yes, and then you're off and running.
Off and running. That is definitely you. Oh my gosh. I am just so beyond proud of you, Lisa, and everything that you do. Every time I hear your voice, I send you a little message. I'm like, I hear you on the air. You're doing a great job. I'm just so proud, and I get super excited for all of the possibilities for you, but all of the possibilities behind you. All of the little soccer playing elementary school babies running around with that in mind, and that intentional purpose in mind. I know that our world is in a great place because of people like you, a savant at your job, a ceiling breaker, and a history maker, but most importantly, my great friend, Lisa Byington. Thank you so much for stopping by Christy's Court today on the Field of 68 Network.
Well, you are one of my favorite people, Christy. And like I said, whatever you ask, I am here for. And you are a connector, and you are inspirational in your own way. And I just am so grateful to be a part of your life. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, I love you so much. Grunt to glory, Lisa Byington. We appreciate you, and thank you so much for sharing your time. I do want to add one thing. Tell us a little bit about this T-shirt and all of the T-shirts that are with it before we go. I just want to make sure that if people want one, they can get one.
It can. Thank you for that. You know, I always like to say the first thing is that I don't make any money off of the T-shirts, and it all is a donation that goes to a children's hospital in Chicago. And the reason why it's that, I volunteered at this children's hospital in Chicago, Lurie Children's Hospital, for like 6 or 7 years while living in downtown Chicago. And it will help fund the capability of families who can't afford it, don't have a lot of resources, whose kids need cancer treatments or blood transfusion, to help fund for that. And so I have partnered with a company that's run by females. They're called Icon Vibes, and they do T-shirts. And they reached out to me and they said, we're trying to create T-shirts of women in sports, and we wanted to know if you'd be interested. And the second when they told me that I could donate, you know, the profits to anything that I wanted to, and I picked Lurie Children's Hospital to do that, I was all in. And so they asked me about a couple of phrases that meant a lot to me. And one of them is what you're wearing. You've got to work the grunt job to get the glory job. And the other one, Christy, that we've highlighted is it's my dream that a female voice on a men's game would become background noise. And I feel like that one needs a little more explanation. And what I mean by that is, think of how many times you're listening to a men's game and you have male announcers on and you're doing something else, work and stuff, and you don't think twice about who's announcing the game. But the second you hear a female voice on a quote unquote men's game, basketball, football, soccer, baseball, you know, whatever you name it, you stop what you're doing. You're trying to figure out who's that female. And so when I know that it's become now background noise, and we have female voices on men's games, whatever the role of that female voice is, and we just keep it moving and we keep it going, we don't stop to try to figure out who it is, then I know we've arrived. And so that has become one of my other favorite sayings. And so if anybody listening to this feels so inclined that they want to purchase a T-shirt, and again, the money goes to Lurie Children's Hospital, you can go to lisabyington.iconvibes.com, and you can either place a donation or order a T-shirt, and it would be much, much appreciated. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, I'd love that. And I love you. And you're an iconic vibe all by yourself.
Oh, you.
But I appreciate you. Love you so much, Lisa. Thank you again for joining us.